My dad, Albert Barsotti, was born in Baltimore, Maryland in 1917. He died in Arizona in 2012. He was a very, very good dad. Not talkative, though. He never talked about his family or his past very much. If you questioned him about things, he would tell you, but my mom was the talker in the family. So I recently found cassette tape I asked him to make with family stuff on it back in 2003. And in this first portion I'm going to be recording tonight, he tells a lot more about his family and his early life in Baltimore growing up, in the 10 to 15 minute it runs, than far more than he ever told me during the 52 years of my life when he was still with us. So in any case, probably not a lot of people will have a reason to listen to this, but I think my dad deserves a little slice of cyber immortality. He was a very good man, and I miss him very much. So without further ado, I'm going to start the tape. And not a master of technology. Dad was obviously already talking when he hit the play button. So without further ado, I'll get to him.
Wonder why it's not working.
Were you plugged in?
Yeah. It was a row house, 2 floors and a basement. The house next on the left side was a grocery store. Next block on the same street was a drugstore. You could get the biggest 5-cent ice cream cone with Jimmy's. 3 blocks away was the state penitentiary. Then they used to hang the prisoners. Not anymore. Across from it was my aunt and uncle lived. My father, sister, and their family. Next block in the other direction was St. John's Church, now closed, and across the street from church was a bakery. Up the side street from the house was a pickle factory. Directly across from our house was a bar. Our house and lots more in the area were later torn down and housing projects were raised. Our school was 2.5 corner. I started in the first grade with my brother. I was 4 and he's 2.5 years older. My father had Harley Davidson motorcycle. He rode this until he had a bad accident. Don't remember how bad, but that was the end of the motorcycle. Then he had a 4-door open sedan. It was in Auburn. I remember taking trips. We went to Atlantic City, Cumberland, Maryland. That is where Cumberland, my godfather, lived. He was owner of a fruit and vegetable stand in the market. My mother's father had a barber shop near Blair Market. He had 2 sons, Vince and Vito, both barbers, and a daughter named Anna. My grandfather had a statuary business, and at one time had about 40 men working. He had 2 brothers, Maurice and Armindo. They made statues all kinds and shapes and shipped them all over the country. There came a time when people thought they would bring bad luck, so the place gradually shut down. While all this was going on, in the meantime, we had moved to Hamilton. At that time, it was a suburb. We were about 8 houses from the main road, Hartford Road. It was the last house in the block. There were no paved roads, only cinders on the roads. When you fell off your bike on them cinders, boy, you really knew it. We had a full house. At that time, we had another brother, Maurice, sister Mary, and husband Ray, and son Raymond, known as Bum. Sister Angelina and husband Joseph. Vince and I went to school 236 in the 6th grade. We walked to and from. Never had any buses at that time. The next year, started in the 7th grade at Clifton Park. Rode a streetcar back and forth. Main streetcar ran from town to Hamilton, and past Hamilton, a trolley on a single track to end the line of Parkville. The house was next to the woods. I went hunting with a .22 rifle and never shot anything. Picked berries, blackberries, and cherries. Got lots of jiggers, lots of times, real bad. Brought back to the house wood from the woods and then sawed them up to burn in the furnace. Back to the trolley. Later the trolley was extended, and at our street they had a turnaround loop in Inglewood Avenue. My father made a shop in the garage on Inglewood and worked by himself. On weekends he loaded the car with statues, and we, him and I, would go to Washington Boulevard and set a roadside stand. He also made ornaments for the new buildings in the town, the banks and the movies, etc. Mother always worked in the tailor shop as long as I can remember. She worked all day. Sometimes she would take work home. When we moved to Hamilton, she rode the streetcar to work. Angie's husband worked at a shoe factory. One day stepped on a rusty nail and soon died. At that time, it was before penicillin was invented. She later married and moved. Her husband then had a tavern. Mary and family lived there, and she took care of the house and us kids, as Mom was always working. One day, Father helped push his brother's car and ruptured himself. He was afraid to have an operation, as his father had died having an operation. It gradually got worse, and he finally died in the hospital in 1945. Mary and Ray had a son, Raymond, and later adopted a newborn girl named Betty Lou. Vincent was married to Thelma and had a daughter. He had his sinuses operated on as they were giving him trouble, and since the operation never recovered. About a month later, he died in 1943. Mother finally had to stop work in 1964 when we were at that time in Denver, and that's when she passed away. Mary also passed away as she was cutting the lawn in 1973. Angie went to the hospital for cancer treatment and never recovered, and she died in 1985. Now back to me again. Had to go to Clifton High, as no school in Hamilton at that time. I took over a paper route at 11 years old. I served the papers on a bike and sometimes walked. Price was 10 cents a week and 5 cents on Sunday. Did this until senior year at Poly. Gave it up to try out for the baseball team. Also worked in the mornings, helping the milkman early before school. That time the milk wagons were drawn by a horse. There had no milk cartons, only milk bottles. The milk would freeze and cream would come up out of the bottle. At that time, cream was always the top of the milk. There was no homogenized at that time. Later one morning, working with the milkman, I found a woman's purse, and the milkman said he would turn it in. He did, only he took credit for it. I don't know what he got, but I never got anything. While in 9th grade at the machine shop at school, I made a mistake and had part of my finger removed. They kept me there at school for 6 hours until Mary came and took me to the doctors. Also had my first hernia that same year. Senior year at 15 years old, I tried out for the ball team. All my friends that I played ball with were out for the freshman team, as I was 3 years ahead of them, which then made me a senior, so I couldn't do it. So I didn't play, so I graduated in 1934. But the rest of the guys made the team and they played, which allowed them to get to college on scholarships. Next year after graduation, I went to vocational school so I could play baseball. As season was about to start, I was supposed to be the shortstop. I was told that I was a high school graduate and I was ineligible. So soon after that, I was disappointed and left school. My uncle got me a job at a steel mill. I was to take the temperature of all the water fountains. That was a pretty soft job. Next, I moved to the job of sweeper in a coal strip mill. I had to keep the place clean, oil up. We moved the oil where it was on the roads. I had to work on 3 shifts. They changed each week. Brother Vince also worked there as a baler. They baled all the scrap steel in large bales. He was promoted to the catcher on the mill. As rolls came out of the mill, he would catch the end of the sheet and start the bales. I then took over his job as a baler and worked until 1937. That is when they had a big layoff. I also got my first car that year, a new Oldsmobile. On the way home from picking up the car, I stopped for a red light at Clifton Park. Some woman ran back of the car, so I had to return to have her repaired. The woman had no insurance. So she had to pay me some money weekly until it was paid, which she never did pay me all. After we got laid off, I then started to caddy at the golf course as jobs were scarce. Next job, working with a surveyor for about 6 months. Back to the steel mill. While working on a baler was hard work, I had ruptured myself and later had to have operation for a hydrocele. This was after the layoff. Before this operation, we traded off the Oldsmobile for a new Buick. 4 doors with fender wells and black. Having cars then, I had lots of friends as the only one in the crowd that had a car. After caddying, I went to work at Martin's in 39, stayed there until 1982. Back and forth between here and Baltimore and Colorado. Around 1929, we started a baseball team. We found an empty lot on Old Hartford Road, cleared off the field, and made it into a baseball field. We all pitched in money, and I went and bought the balls and bats, and I was the treasurer. Later, we had a team in the league. Our name was St. Dominic's. We had some bingo games and sponsors and raised money to buy the uniforms, and played at the city parks, Mount Pleasant and Clifton and so forth. The season was ready to start. We had our new uniforms ready to play. Only problem is it rained all Sunday. We had to wait. We had the week before we started playing. More later. Back again. Later I left the team.
Okay, that'll be it for part one. Like I said, we're more in that 15 minutes than I ever heard in 52 years. So, Dad, wherever you are, hopefully you're somewhere. I miss you very much and think about you every day. And that's it, guys and gals of the interweb. I do a lot of other stuff on these tapes, but videos. Yeah, you can tell we're 20th century kids. But anyway, like and subscribe if you want, blah, blah. This has been a Not Ready for Podcasting production.